But here's a Republican senator's reaction to having learned a bit more about the files.
I've not been one of the members who has glommed onto this as an issue. I've sort of intentionally deferred to others to find out about it. But 9-year-old victims, well, initially my reaction to all this was, I don't care, I don't know what the big deal is. But now I see what the big deal is, and it was worth investigating, and the members of Congress that have been pushing this were not wrong.
That is a Republican from the very red state of Wyoming, where MAGA runs strong. So when she says she didn't want to look at it or she deferred to others, the politics of that we all know. She may have been in a place where even acknowledging this was worth looking at, let alone a problem, including the Trump DOJ's oversight, well, that may have been hard. And now, after all this, if you want to take her at her word, she is discovering it is a big deal and worth investigating. When she talks about the lawmakers who did push this, she's referring to people like Massey and Khanna from both parties. And here was Khanna after going in to look at the unredacted files.
There were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason. When Congressman Massey and I pointed this out to the Department of Justice, they acknowledged their mistake, and now they have revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. Now, my question is, why did it take Thomas Massey and me going to the Justice Department to get these 6 men's identities to become public? And if we found 6 men that they were hiding in 2 hours, imagine how many men they are covering up for in those 3 million files.
In that sense, the people who pushed to get the files out are now doing the work of going through them, as I mentioned. That's Khanna. We reached out from MS Now to each of those named individuals. One, Wexner's legal representative responded, saying he was told by the DOJ he was viewed as a source of information about Epstein and was not, the lawyer says, viewed as a criminal target. I mentioned several of these developments. I wanted to focus with you first on Lutnick because it reflects how many powerful people seem to be lying about this, even though, in fairness, we discussed in our reporting what is and is not alleged. Does it matter that he lied for so long? Does it matter that the president doesn't see this as any kind of issue?
Well, let's just remember, he's a cabinet secretary. So I think that sort of answers that question. Is the public entitled to the truth from somebody who is not just in the government, who works for us, but is at that high level in the government? And this is one where, I guess I'm enough of a Puritan that my view is, of course we are. And we only have ourselves to blame if we let it slide. And again, I take the reporting that he did not, or there's no evidence that he did anything wrong with Mr. Epstein. I'm basing it solely on the fact that he very loudly and publicly claimed that he disassociated himself with Mr. Epstein, and we now know that is not true. And we're entitled to more from our public officials. And frankly, the higher up you are, the more responsible you are to be candid with the public.
And the big questions are whether the process as it's supposed to work, people investigate crimes. You've overseen all kinds of such projects, and then it goes forward rather than what, by the way, this administration in other contexts has been accused of, which is cherry picking what they want to attack and letting other crimes go quite dangerously in the politicization of DOJ. In that context, Pam Bondi very infamously said there was nothing else to see and no possible blackmail evidence. Lutnick, before today's confession, had been talking publicly about Epstein being a blackmailer. Take a look.
That's what his MO was, get a massage. And what happened in that massage room, I assume, was on video. This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever. Blackmailed people. That's how he had money.
Andrew?
Let's just remember that with Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche saying there's nothing to see here, that meant that they had seen and reviewed the evidence that you're reporting that the evidence that they said there's nothing to see here, that meant knew that what a cabinet secretary was saying about disassociating himself with Jeffrey Epstein was not true. These reporting in the files of Donald Trump saying that he was very aware in the early 2000s that Jeffrey Epstein had been engaged in this kind of conduct, and they knew that he had said the opposite publicly. So to me, just remember, this is news to us. It is not news to the FBI and DOJ and Pam Bondi representing and Todd Blanche representing to us that there's nothing to see here. So for everything that, when you're saying this is new and look at this and this shows X, Y, and Z, just remember that is information that the government was aware of when they said nothing to see here, we're not doing anything.
And so should they have looked deeper at what is described as a surveillance system, the clear efforts to create these videos? Do you think that they've released all the videos that they had?
No, so I think there's no question they have not done enough, and I think Congress needs to pick up the slack. One of the reasons I say that is Todd Blanche, in defending his sort of softball questions for Ghislaine Maxwell, said, well, just remember, we didn't have all of those emails. For instance, the emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, where Jeffrey Epstein says, you know, we haven't heard from Donald Trump. He's the dog that didn't bark. And she responds essentially saying, you know, I was thinking the same thing. And he said, well, I didn't have that. We didn't get that. So to me, what Congress needs to do is find out what is the nature of the investigation, what was done, what was not done. That, by the way, may cross Republican and Democratic administrations. So be it. This is what it means to do an impartial, unbiased investigation. But they should call prosecutors. They should call agents. To your point, they could call the staff of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to find out where they interviewed, what information they have, and they can immunize Ghislaine Maxwell because she has taken the fifth, and there's a way to force her to actually testify, which prosecutors know, Congress knows. They can immunize her, and that takes away her Fifth Amendment, and then she has to answer questions. So if Congress really wanted to know the answers to her questions, they have the tools.